Comidor platform offers you the ability to build your own apps through Low-Code App Builder without using coding. We have three application types. For table applications, we have process-enabled and non-process-enabled. Choose process-enabled app when you want to monitor process-enabled records with scheduling, state, workflow steps, completion, etc. Choose a non-process-enabled app when you want to create a table of data-driven records. No workflows can be related to this type. Another application type is the report application, where users can create easily with low code reports for specific entities. Finally, there are Kanban applications that help teams create Kanban boards and visualize simple records. Let's see now how we can create a new application from scratch. We'll create a process-enabled application example with a workflow. So let's start by creating the workflow design to define all the process steps. You can access workflow designs from App Factory, Process Automation, Workflows. Here we will click on the plus button to create a new workflow design, define the title, click Save. We will be redirected to the view form of this workflow design, and we will click on the design to determine all process steps. By default it is empty, we only have one start and one end, and we are now ready to define all process steps, its hierarchy, all the business rules that we would like to be included. This supply request workflow is going to be a simple workflow, so that will include any requestor, his manager, and the finance department. So firstly, I will create my swim lanes. Okay, the first one is going to be for the requestor, the second is going to be for the requestor manager. This swim lane is just a free text, so you can type whatever you want. And also the finance department. After I have created all my swim lanes, if I like, I can edit one, move them up and down, or remove them by clicking the X button. So the start is going to be by the requestor. The first step is going to be the task assigned to the requestor manager, to the creator's manager, to review the supply request. So I'm going to drag and drop a task component in the pop-up window that will appear on the right side of my screen. I can define the basic information such as the title and the assigned to. So in the title I will write review supply request by manager. I can also write the parent states, and in the assigned to I can choose from a list of dynamic options such as creator, creators, manager, etc. I can also choose a group from the organizational chart, excluding leaders, the whole group, or only leaders of a group, or even specific hard-coded users. In this case, we will choose the creator's manager. And I will click Save. My task is saved. I can now move it, place it wherever I want, and I can make the connection. So from the start, I'm going to drag and drop an arrow to the first element, to the next element after start, that is going to be the task. And click Save. After that, we will have a condition. The manager will review this supply request and will input his decision. We will create later on a drop-down list with the decision either to approve or reject. So in this case, we would need to define those alternative paths to our workflow design. So I'm going to need one exclusive XOR gateway, because after the review from the manager, we will have either one path or the other, either the accept or the reject option. So I'm going to connect from the task to the gateway and click Save. And then we will draw the two alternative paths. In case of rejection, we will send an email to the requester. So I will drag and drop an email component from the left side list, and I will define some parameters. First of all, notify creator. Um, in the email, I can specify which is going to be the sender, a predefined text or a hard-coded text. I can define the subject. Your request has been rejected. In the subject, I can include standard text, but also I can include values from fields. We will come back later to check also this option. Apart from the subject, we can also specify the email body. The email body is a rich text where we can write our message. Dear user, your request has been rejected for the following reasons. And we can include also here the text that we would like, values from parameters such as application fields. I'm going to write here an example, rejection comments. This is actually the database name of a field that we will create in a while. You can also include colors, font sizes, font styles, and so on. So I will add some random here just to show you. Finally, we can also specify the recipients. The recipients can be either a hard-coded value, such as a hard-coded email, one or multiple emails divided by comma, or we can have value from a field that was added in a previous step. Let's say the email of a customer that was defined in a previous step, or we can have dynamic options from users. For instance, we can choose the creator, creators manager, from a specific group, and so on. In this case, it will check for this specific user here the related personnel card and see which email has been configured there. So in this case, I will choose creator, and it will check the creator's personnel card, which email has been set there. Finally, we can also include attachments, other binary fields as attachments to our email to be sent automatically from the workflow. So after the manager rejects, an email will be triggered automatically by the system to the creator. We can also write a small comment on top of path like this one, and we will come later on to also include our conditions. So here I typed rejected, and as you can see, it is displayed on top of my arrow. After the email, we will also create in the rejection option, we will also create another task. We can either create one task from scratch, or we can click on an existing task and click the duplication icon. By clicking the duplication icon, a second task identical to the first one is being created, and we can click on the pencil button to apply any changes. Here I'm going to write the resubmit step by the requester. So resubmit supply request, and in the assign to I will choose the creator. So in case of rejection, first it will send an email to the creator, and then it will create another task to the creator. Here the user can review the supply request information and submit it again for review. So in this case, we will have a loop. I am connecting the second task to the first one. If the manager rejects again, it will keep looping to this route. Now, in case of acceptance, let's use another component. Let's use a notification. The notification will trigger an alert, a system alert inside Comidor. And here we can specify the title, notify creator. And here again we can specify the subject, the subject of the notification. For instance, your supply request has been approved. Again, here we can include standard text as well as data from application fields. So I'm going to write a hashtag app dot and the name of the application that I would like to include, such as the reference number. Again, here in the notification component, we should choose a list from the list, one or multiple recipients of this notification. In notifications, we can only send them to other users. So again, we have some dynamic options like the creator, creator's manager, and so on. We can choose from a list of groups from the organizational chart, the whole group, leaders, or specific roles. Again, in this case, I will choose the creator. And I will click Save. Now I'm going to connect the happy scenario, the gateway with the notification. I can again type something in a short description in my path, and I will come back later to include also my conditions. The final task is going to be assigned to the finance department. Again, I can either drag and drop one new or I can copy an existing one, and I can change the things that I would like. Proceed with purchase. This step is going to be assigned to a whole group, to finance department. Here you can see the available options, either assign it to whole group or only to members or only to leaders. And click Save. So after the notification, the finance department will receive the third task. Once this step is completed, the whole process will come to an end. When we are connecting a step with the end component, we can define the target state. In this case, the target state is the state of the whole process, so we can automatically change the state of the process into completed, cancelled, paused, failed, scheduled, or running. In this case, I will select the completed option. Now our workflow design is ready, and we are ready to move on to the application. In order to monitor all supply requests, we will create an application, a table application of type process enabled. In order to access App Builder, you can go from the main menu, type App Builder, or you can go under App Factory, Application Builder, and choose App Builder. Here you can see the list of all the existing applications that you have created, and you can click on the plus button to create a new one. Once you click on the plus button, you will be redirected to those 10 steps. App Builder guides us through those 10 steps to turn any idea into custom application. Let's take a closer look to each step. Firstly, in basic info, we choose the application type between table application, report application, and Kanban app. In this case, we are building a table application for our supply requests. So let's give the entity name. This entity name refers to the application, how it's going to be stored in the database. So I will write something like that. Please type in capitals without special characters and without spaces. The application name refers to the name of the application, how the end users will see it. So I will type here supply requests. The description field is actually a short description that only the designers can see, not the end users. This is a demo application. Now, with this option, I'm making this application as process enabled or not. By choosing this option, I'm actually making my application process enabled, so my application will have all functionalities of a process. It will have duration, it will have state, it will have the ability to be connected with tasks and also with a workflow. So if you mark this option, you will be then able to connect this application with a workflow. If you leave this empty, this step will be deactivated. Also, when you're creating an application, if you make it as process enabled, you cannot go back and change it. The same applies for non-process enabled. The access rights refer to which group of people will view this table, will view this application from the main menu. So you can either choose everyone, specific users, or define it into specific groups from the organizational chart or even roles. Let's leave it the option everyone and click save. Once I click save, my application is saved. So you can see here the application name, and I am redirected to the second step, which is data model. In the data model, I'm actually able to create all the fields, all the user fields that are required for my application. Usually, in many cases, we need the user to input data, either a decision or information about, in this case, the request. So in this place, I'm going to create all the fields that I want. I can create date fields, drop-down lists, text, number, and so on. So let's see now how we can create a new field. You can click on the plus button to create a new field from scratch, and you will be redirected to the creation form. In the label, you can type the name of the field, how the end user will view it, such as the item that is going to be requested. Automatically, you can see this option auto-generate name. The system automatically populates the column name. The column name is actually how this field is going to be stored in the database. We can use the database names of fields in scripts or in notification and emails if we would like to send dynamic parameters to our emails, notifications, etc. In the type, I can choose from a list which type of field I would like this field to be. As you can see, there is a white big list. We will create some fields now to see some examples. So the item is going to be text. If you choose the option text, you should also specify the size, how many characters you would like this field to have. So let's add 150. You can add up to 500. We can click save to save this field or save a new if we would like to keep adding more fields. So I will continue. Let's say I want to create the reference number. In this case, I'm going to choose a numeric type. When I choose a numeric type, I can specify the digits of the decimals and the digits of this field. So let's say I want it to be a numeric field of 9 digits without decimals. Let's continue. I also want to add a drop-down list. Let's say supply type. In this case, I'm going to choose the option, the type list, where I can choose from here. I can define actually all the options of my list. I can click on the plus button to add more rows, or I can click on the minus button to remove rows. So let's add here the options. Option 1 is hardware, option 2 is software, option 3 is other. I can make as many options as I like. Let's continue, save a new. Let's add also quest date, a date field. So in this case, I would just choose the option, the type date. We also need a condition for the manager. So I will add a review by manager, and I'm going to create another drop-down list with two options. As we said, we have two options, either to approve or reject option. Save a new. I will also add the rejection comments for the manager in case of rejection, and I would choose a paragraph. The paragraph is actually a memo, a larger text field that can take up to 10,000 characters. Keep in mind that the paragraphs cannot be displayed in columns, but are useful for comments. Let's also add one more field, quantity, one numeric field as well, size 9, and click save. And finally, price. Let's also choose a currency. The currency field is actually a numeric field that is also showing 2 decimal places and the thousand separator. Let's say that I have finished and I have created all the fields that I need. So in this case, in order my fields to be properly stored in the database, I need to reload the database. Once I reload the database, I can go back to my application builder. And now I'm ready to move on to the next step. The next step is table. Here, by default, it will populate all the fields that I have created in the previous step, apart from the paragraph. In table, I'm actually able to specify which fields I want to be displayed as columns in my main table. I can choose from the list of the fields that I have created. I can rearrange them, so I can specify which goes first, second, third, etc. just by drag and drop. I can remove one or multiple columns from this checkbox option, and also I can click on the plus button to include more. Since this application is process enabled, I can choose from the list of fields also the database fields that are related to a process, such as I can choose the category, the importance, the priority, the state, if it is running, completed, cancelled, failed, and so on. The stage, which refers to the stage of the workflow that we are in real time. And let's also add the creator and click save. Once we have added all the fields as columns and we have specified their position, we can move on to the next step. Now, in step forms, we are able to create all the forms that are necessary for our application to display the fields that we have created to the end user. There are in general 3 places where we can add and show our forms. Firstly, we can display forms inside our tasks. So if you remember, we have a decision to be made, which is regarding the review by manager, the review of the supply request by manager. So in order for the manager to review, we need a form to include this field so the user can add his decision, the approve or the reject. We can also create a form to be visible in the initiation, where the user, the requester, can include information about the supply request, the type, the item, the quantity, and so on. Finally, the last type of form that we can create is a form that will be displayed in our main process. It can be displayed as a supportive form or as our primary form. We will create now all those 3 types. Let's start by clicking the plus button, define our title. Let's go first with a quick add form and type a title. Let's say supply request. This is the title that the end user will also see. I will choose from the option quick. In quick add menu, this means that after we publish our application, this form will be displayed in the quick add menu as an option to trigger this application. Let's click on our new form, scroll a bit down, and here we can see the form designer. In this place we have full control over our forms. We can design them exactly as we want. We can drag and drop panels, sections, paragraphs, styles, and all the fields from the left side. For the quick add form, we will keep it simple. We will have only one section. I will drag and drop the fields that I would like to be included. So I'm going to include the item, the supply type, the request date, quantity, and price. As you can see with drag and drop, I can rearrange the position of my fields inside my form. Also, I can click on a specific field and apply properties. For instance, I can choose if this field is going to be view only or editable. I can change the label. So if I start typing a new label here, you can see an instant preview of how my form will look like. We can include tooltips, patterns, we can make a field mandatory, and so on. Now, if I click required option, you can see that it shows a red star. This means that this field is mandatory, so the user cannot proceed unless he adds a value to this field. I will do the same for the rest fields because I want the user to give values. After I finish with the configuration of my form, I have to click publish, so all my changes will be stored and visible to other users. Now I can either create a new form from scratch, or I can click the option copy form, so I can keep everything that this form has, all the format, to a new one. So I will add the title review supply request and click save. If you refresh here, you can see that the new form has been created with the title that I gave, and it has kept exactly all the properties and the fields that I have included before. Firstly, I'm going to change the option quick because I don't want this to be quick add form. I already have a quick add form, so I will choose the option no, and then I would go below to include more options to apply some changes to my current form. Firstly, I want the manager to view only those fields and not be able to edit them. So I will mark all those fields as view only. Then I can also change the name of the section. Let's call it supply request info, and then I'm going to add another section with the manager decision. So here I will include the review by manager and the rejection comments. The review by manager should be required, but the rejection comments should be optional. I can also add a placeholder. Please type your comments here. At the same time, you can see how the placeholder will look like to the end user. And I will click publish. We would also need one more form in case of resubmission. So I'm going to copy again the second form now. Resubmit supply request, and I will click save. If I refresh, I can see the second copied form. And now I will make those options, those fields, editable, and the decision by the manager is going to be view only. Okay, here I will choose view only, view only. Don't forget to publish your form after you finish with the format. And then we would need one more form to be visible to our main process as a summary form that includes all information. So I can get either the resubmit or the previous form. Again, I will copy it. Let's say supply request summary in this and click save. In this case, I will edit my form and choose that my form should be visible to our main process, so mark this option check, and then I can specify if it's going to be displayed first or after the default form of a process enabled application with the title, the assignees, and the default form of a process. In our case, I will choose retain existing form, so our form, our custom form, will be displayed first when we open a supply request record. Here I can also change the layout of my form. I can add one or two columns if I like. I can choose another section, maybe a process info. And we can also include here information regarding the process itself. So for instance, I can choose the creator, I can choose the state, it is running, completed, and so on, the stage, the started at, the date that it has started, and the date this process is finished. Finally, apart from the columns and fields that we saw, we can also include paragraphs. Where in our paragraphs it's a rich text where I can write the comments that I like, useful info regarding a proper form completion maybe, or any other guideline that you want. The text that we will add here, we can add the format that we like, we can apply font size, font colors, and so on. Okay, we can immediately see the preview of this paragraph. Finally, we can also change the styles of a form. In particular, you can drag and drop this style block, and at the same time you are able to change the background color of your form, the headers. Actually, you have full control over your form. The font size, the borders, the labels, anything is fully customizable. If you do not want this layout, this style to be included, you can just delete your style block. After you finish, you can click publish, and this form will also be visible to the end users. The next two steps refer to widgets and tabs. We will skip those two steps for now. Widgets refers to real-time reporting in various graphical formats of data from the runtime of this application in pie charts, bar charts, lines, table reports, and so on. And tabs is actually the tabs that can be added either in records or in the main application table to display those widgets. So I'm going to skip them from now. And move on to step workflow. In step workflow, we are able to connect our application with an existing workflow. So far, this view is empty because we haven't connected any workflow yet. So you can click on this button and choose from the list of the existing workflow designs. In this case, I'm going to type the supply request workflow and choose OK. What you see here is actually the diagram that we designed before. Keep in mind that you can connect one workflow with one application. This means that every time that we run a new supply request, every time that we make a new record in the supply requests application, this workflow will be also triggered. Moving on, the next step is called event scripts. That refers to more advanced users. To include scripts, this application to be performed on specific events. Again, we will not expand more on that. Finally, the overview step is actually the configuration. You can choose from a list of basic options to be included or not to your application. For instance, you can choose the Comidor standard functionality for comments, tags, links. If you want the user to be able to insert, update, or delete, allow print or export. Furthermore, you can apply your data customization. You can choose, for instance, to have a specific prefix to each record or a suffix. In this case, I will add the word supply. I can also define a numeric field to be as incremental field. In this case, I would choose the reference number. This means that every time you create a new record in this application table, this field will get automatically value increased by 1. We can also specify the starting from which value for the incremental number field. We can choose the level 1, 2 or 3 of categorization. So by default, when any end user opens the supply request application, they will see from the left side the categorization per stage or per any other field that we would like. Apart from the default categorization, the user of course can apply changes to their own view, but this default categorization is global for all users. The primary field is actually the record identity, which also appears in lists. Is actually the title of our record. So here I can choose from the list of available fields. In this case, I can choose either the item, which is a text field, or I can choose the incremental number field. So the title of our of each record will be the combination of our prefix and the incremental number. So the first time that we run it, the title will be supply.1, and the second time that we run a supply request, it will be supply.2, and so on. So let's just choose the reference number for this case. Many other parameters can be defined from here. I will define also the access rights, the assign to. This refers to the assign to of the process, since this is a process enabled application. So I will choose the creator, the creators manager, and the finance department, all the groups that I would like to have access to be involved in our workflow. This means that I, as a requester, will be able to view my own requests. As a manager, I will be able to view my own requests and my subordinates' requests, and anyone that belongs to finance group will view all the requests regardless who was the initiator. Finally, I will choose the option automatically start process, so the workflow will be triggered automatically. Once I finished my configuration, I'm now ready to move on to the final step. The final step, of course, is to publish my application. Once I publish my application will be accessible under custom apps, and any user that has access can find this application here in the menu. And this is the actual result. Since this is a table application, we can see some standard information, some standard features, such as the search functionality, the advanced search functionality, all the table columns as we defined it in the application builder, the ability to create, the ability to export and print, the filters on the left side, and the categorization. Now, before we run it, we should go back to our workflow design and define and connect the forms to the tasks that we want and the conditions. So we will go back to the workflow design. and we will open the design. Now, if we click on a specific task, click on the pencil button, we will be able to connect this step with a form. We want to connect the review supply request by manager with a respective form. So when the workflow runs, this is not going to be just a manual task, but it will be connected to this form, and any information, any field and rule we included to this form will be applied to this step. So the user that receives this task should complete this form in order for the system to let him move on. So I added the form and click Save. I will do the same for the resubmit supply request. And here I'm going to connect the resubmit supply request form and click Save. Now we're almost ready. We should edit the conditions, the paths actually, the accept and rejected paths. So here I can choose the conditional path type. Here is actually the custom condition builder where I can create my conditions. I can make simple or more advanced conditions depending on its case. You can click on the plus button to add more conditions. You can define in between and or. You can remove if you like a condition, and you can even add parentheses to make more complicated conditions. In this case, we will only need one condition, so I will choose the table supply requests and the field that I would like to be true and included to my condition. So in this case, I will choose review by manager to be equal or different from, empty or not empty. In this case, I will choose, of course, equals, approve, and save. Once I save my condition, you can see a small diamond to be displayed in my path. This means that this path holds a condition, whereas this one is empty, is a default flow. I will do the same for the rejection path. I will choose conditional path type and define the same field, review by manager, but this time I will choose reject. The same I should do for all conditions, for all decisions, and for all alternative paths that I have drawn. In this simple example, we only have one condition, so we are now ready to run it. Now let's start a new supply request. From the Quick Add menu, we can check and see the form, the Quick Add form that we have created. So by clicking on it, a form will appear on the right side of our screen. Here you can actually see all the fields that we created before and all the rules that we have specified. So for instance, the supply type, the item and the request date are mandatory. So if I try just to click Save, the system will not let me. Now let's add some values. And click Save. Once I click Save, a new record is being stored to the supply requests application that we have created before. You can see that it has gotten the title that we have specified, the prefix, along with the incremental reference number. This is also the main form that we have defined with all the sections, the columns, the paragraphs, and so on. Since this record is linked with a workflow, we can check under workflow tasks all the steps that have been created and their status. We can check here that we have the first task being created, which is actually the review supply request by manager. It has been assigned dynamically to my manager based on my personnel card. And also I can check the date that this step has been created. We can also click on the run diagram to see in real time which path has been followed, and it also highlights in green the steps that have been completed and in blue the ones that are still pending. Throughout the workflow execution, when tasks are being assigned to specific users, they will also receive an alert to their calendar. So if we click on a specific task, we can get more information. Since we linked another form to this specific task, we can get this information. You can also click on the complete button in order to edit this specific form and add data. As you can see, the first fields are view only. I cannot apply any changes, whereas the rest ones here, the manager decision, is editable. So let's choose the reject option. And write your comments. By clicking save, this step is marked as completed. And if we go back to our main process, we can see that now the workflow tasks are 2. So we can check that the first step has been completed, whereas a new one has been created. This one has been assigned to my user. And as you can see, I have also received a notification in my calendar. The notification here in my mini calendar is showing the title of the task. In the parentheses, I can also see for which process, for which supply request it is about, the assigner, and the time this step is scheduled. We can also check the diagram here, and you can see that the first step is also marked as completed. You can see it highlighted in green, and the path that was followed is this one. If we now check our email, we can see that the new email has been sent based on the configuration of our workflow design. That includes information of standard text as well as data from the workflow itself, such as the rejection comments. Let's run one more supply request. We would go from the quick add. Now choose the software option. And click save. A new record, as you can see, is being created again to supply requests. Now this time the title of our record is supply.2. Again, we can see the review supply request by manager, the same task. Let's go with a happy scenario this time and approve it. If we now go back to our main process, we can see that the first step is being completed, whereas the second, which is proceed with purchase, has been created and assigned to finance department. So if we open the run diagram, we can check that this path was now followed, and this step is still pending. As you can see, we have also received an automatic notification by the system. Your supply request has been approved. That includes as a message standard text as well as the reference number, which is data from the workflow. And also the second task, which is a simple task, proceed with purchase without the form, that we need to just complete it for the workflow to be completed as well. If we now go back to our main application table to our supply requests, we can monitor at any time all the records, all the instances of our supply requests. We can use the search functionality or the advanced search functionality. We can use the filters on the left side to check for the records that have been created on a specific period or filter them based on state. We can also see the grouping, the default grouping that we have specified from the application builder, and see their stage without having to open each record. And finally, we can print and export our data.